Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the contretemps du jour in the mayor's race yesterday was this revelation that Mayor Triple Threat's campaign had sent an email to CPS teachers asking them to effectively recruit the kids to work for her campaign by offering the students at their respective classes and schools credit for having worked or for doing work on the campaign. And this drew a firestorm of criticism, first from the Chicago media and then, of course, her competitors piling on. But even though the email was ham-handed, it's an example of campaign staff incompetence, I don't know that it rises to the level of the moralizing that we heard starting at Winnetka talking to Wilmette up there.
Well, they got the email.
And moving into the other candidates. I mean, the anytime a Chicago politician is waving around the city's ethics ordinance, you know something is amiss.
Yeah, well, this deputy campaign manager, Megan Crane is her name, she sent out this email looking for curious, enthusiastic, hardworking young people eager to help Mayor win this spring. And basically it's 12 hours a week of work. And then they asked the teachers if the kids could get class credit if they help out.
Yeah. So, again, they did something that would be unremarkable if it had been done right, go and ask to see if the schools want to set up externship programs for class credit for anybody who wants to volunteer for any campaign, any candidate in any campaign. It's a way for kids to get experience in electoral politics. Fine, no big deal. She did it, and her staff did it in an incompetent way, but that's the sort of incompetence that's generally punctuated her administration because she is a one-person mayor and a one-person candidate. I'm sure that's the thing that perhaps a lot of people don't realize. I understand from people that used to be relatively close to her that she just doesn't take counsel, and she doesn't take criticism in the form of counsel. People who are critical, even constructively, are not long for her inner circle. Well, and that's these things happen when you surround yourself with sycophants rather than talented individuals.
And their spokesperson responded to WTTW not once, not twice, but 3 times. The first time saying, we're just trying to provide young people the opportunity to engage in our campaign. And then the second statement, they said that they'd cease contact with CPS employees out of an abundance of caution. And then 2 hours later, a third version saying that their CPS employees are off limits.
Right, so we're going to see the Chicago media turn this into a 3-day story, but the systemic sexual abuse of children and the possibility of massive financial fraud in CPS, that's barely a half-day story.
That's no story at all.
Yeah, okay. I got what's important and what's not. For more on this and our continuing effort to bring you candidates for mayor of the city of Chicago, we're pleased to be joined by 6th Ward Alderman Roderick Sawyer, whose dad, of course, Gene, was a mayor of Chicago as well, the second black mayor of Chicago after Harold Washington. Roderick Sawyer, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone.
Do you want to weigh in on this Lori Lightfoot email apocalypse, or what's your perspective?
I was listening to you, and I obviously agree with what you were saying. The problem that I had is this. I don't have access to all the CPS employees, and I don't have access to their emails. I don't even know how to get them. I don't even know how a campaign got the government emails of all these teachers, and yet you're calling them, asking them to do electioneering work. You know, that's I don't know about the legality, but it's certainly a bonehead move. It's not a bright move. It's not. It's not something that you would do. And I've been involved in politics pretty much all my life, and I've never gotten a call saying, "Hey, you know, in exchange for doing election work, I'll get some extra credit for your for your schoolwork or whatever." That's not a bright thing to do, and I'm sorry, it's just not.
It's not. So let's talk about the other thing I mentioned, that OIG report on CPS, and what your interest level is in rethinking how CPS operates.
You know, it was totally unfortunate that no one spent enough time, dealing with these things. We're talking about, sexual assault, and other, horrible things that are happening to our children. And like you said, it was short-shifted. It didn't get the attention it deserved, and we did not talk about it the way we should have. These are some serious allegations, and we should be diving into this because these are our children, and we should be doing everything possible to give them a top-flight education and a top-flight educational experience, not the dark side and the horrible things that were in that report and the things that were alleged. It was troubling, and again, I just don't think we did enough to take care of our children.
Yeah, but if you're mayor, what would you do differently? How would you stop this?
Well, one, you have to highlight it. I mean, these things like this, if they're going on under our noses, we have to put them into the light and not keep them in the dark and keep them in the back burner, if you will. I cannot do anything to stop it, from happening, but I can keep it from happening again. That's what we have to be worried about. What can we do to best serve our children? We have to keep an eye out on things like this, and if we see something like this, it has to be exposed immediately, and we have to, attack it right away. That would be the difference between, what's going on now and what I would do.
So the 6th Ward, I mean, that includes some pretty tough neighborhoods: Inglewood, Auburn, Gresham, Grand Crossing. So what's the conversations? What kind of conversations do you have with teachers and school administrators at the schools in your ward about this? And
I have
generally.
Just generally, I have regular principal meetings that I talk about things that are going on in the respective schools, and almost all the schools I have are grammar schools, elementary. But principals tell me in the times that we meet on a regular basis what goes on in elementary schools. You think that I was talking about a college. I mean, we are talking about sexual assault. We're talking about drug offenses with children, with 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I leave those meetings crying half the time after we have these meetings because they're telling me things that I just did not believe that would happen in elementary schools primarily.
Well, so
organized gang violence. I mean, it's just, and we're trying to worry about them keeping up learning at a level where if we try to get them, we have to get them in the schools and try to get them the social and emotional attention that they need before we can teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Well, what about getting them in other schools? What about expansion of the Opportunity Tax Credit Scholarship Program? I mean, you're somebody who benefited from a good education. You went to Ignatius. Why shouldn't kids on the South Side in the neighborhoods that you represent be allowed, have the resources where they can access better schools?
I believe that everyone should have, and it's worth a conversation. But let's be clear: when I went to Ignatius, I cleaned blackboards.
Okay.
We didn't have the money to go to Ignatius. I had to do, I did work study.
Okay.
All right.
And very proud of it.
Bringing back
even
work study.
Even better. I'm happy to have the kids work too. But in addition to working, now we're trying to provide, and we've got a state law that provides for kids the families to have the resources to make those kind of choices. Isn't that good?
Yeah. Well, it's always part of a conversation that I like to be, involved in. The problem that I think we have in Chicago, basically, is that we never have open discussions about things that are going on. We're always one-sided, and I'm here, 12 years on the council. I see it, and everything. Even when ordinances are introduced, they always introduce one-sided. We never talk about the opposite side. We never have real vigorous discussions like we should on the council floor So we don't get a chance to talk about things from both perspectives. And again, that's something that needs to change.
Again, with the neighborhoods you represent, they're disproportionately impacted by violent crime, which is running wild, despite what Mayor Lightfoot has to say about it. And you,
I think that crime is running wild all over the city. I think.
Well, I agree.
I live in Grand Crossing. I live in Grand Crossing, born and raised. But when I talk to people, when I was in South Lakeview the other day, they're talking about the same thing.
Oh, I agree.
When I was on the far northwest side, they're talking about the same thing. Everybody has that anxiety about crime.
Agreed. And so why did you introduce an ordinance to cut the contract CPS had with the Chicago Police?
Again, you're talking about the CPS with public schools?
Yeah. Officers in schools.
Absolutely. You know what? And that's exactly what I was talking about. It wasn't that I was in support or against it. I wanted to have the conversation. I talk about the pros and the cons of cops in schools. We had a lot of people that had that anxiety because they had bad cops in schools. We also had people talk about how great their school resource officers are because they're very engaging and they're very helpful. So part of me bringing that to the forefront was not to take a side, but was to extend the conversation, to open it up. And as a result of that conversation, we got choice. So some people chose to opt in to have their school officers in the school, which is fine. Some opted not to have their school officers in the school, which is fine. We also, and as a result, we saved money, and it worked out where people can have that option, and they continued that conversation. And that's what I wanted.
Right, but kids at Juarez are still afraid to go back, and their officers were voted out, and now Michelle Clark as well, and you had fatal shootings at both of those schools.
And you know what? And you know what?
Part of
democracy is going to be messy. Democracy is the worst form of government in the world, except for all others. So when things happen like that, it's going to be a little messy in its inception. People are going to make a decision, and they may change their mind. They make another decision, but again, I wanted that decision to be on the local level, not just a top-down function, but a part of a conversation, and I think that was achieved. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but it opened it up for people to make that choice.
So, it's a big field again, which is a commentary on the popularity of the incumbent, to be sure. How do you differentiate yourself from? Let's start with who are perceived to be the top four candidates right now: Vallis, Lightfoot, Chewy, and Willie. Again,
I differentiate myself as a true Chicagoan, someone that understands that most Chicagoans want the same things. We all want safe schools. We all want safe streets. We want vibrant business districts. We want to be able to come and go without incident. We want to be able to walk our neighborhoods. That's what all Chicagoans want from all 77 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. I live that. I'm a part of that. I grew up understanding that. So I'm not far left. I'm not far right. I'm what you would call, more of a centrist. It's just something that I believe that most Chicagoans are right there. And I think I represent the interests of the majority of Chicagoans. I think that's what differentiates me from everyone else.
What's a good example where you have sort of bucked what the conventional Democrat Party line is in the city?
That's a good question.
I'm trying to get content for that question.
Well, you said you're centrist, and so you're an independent thinker, you're not so much party focused. And so, give me an example where you were at odds with the majority of your party on a particular issue.
Locally, I would say, for example, with the red light camera situation, the speed camera thing, where my colleagues were voting to make those changes, I was against it.
You were against red light cameras being installed?
Well, I was against the reduction of the speed camera limit from 10 to 6, the 6 to 10, whatever.
But you support red light cameras. You support the red light cameras.
I support red light cameras in high districts that have high incidents of accidents and fatalities. I think that we should have them, and I think that they're money grabbing everywhere else and anything else. We should be looking at solely at the areas that have those high incidents of crash fatalities and be looking toward those areas for assistance, I think, if you will.
Yep.
I believe, for example, that police officers should be doing traffic stops. That's where I am.
Okay.
I really believe police officers should do, and it has not happened in a long time. And I think that, it also, we've experienced some failures in policing for a long time as well because we abandoned that.
Well, what's your plan for public safety?
Public safety is obviously very important because of the anxiety people have. I believe that, we are understaffed. Yeah, I believe that we are understaffed. I believe that we don't have the resources necessary to provide service to Chicagoans because that's what we're talking about. We are a service-based business in Chicago. So when people call 911, they expect someone to respond to them. They expect an officer to come out there or someone to come out there to get their information and make sure that the offenders are captured and bound for trial. So these are things that, and I think police officers should be laser focused. I think we've done them collectively a disservice in asking the police to do everything in the world except, their assigned job, which is to catch bad guys, to bound them over for trial, to make sure that our streets are safe. That should be the police officer's laser-focused job. Keep them in areas where they can become familiar. I believe in the geographic integrity of what we should be doing. Police officers should stay in areas, not even the beat, but in the general area, sector area, where they can start gaining some familiarity with people. They can gain that trust. I'm proud to say that I've been working on police reform for a long time. I was the lead sponsor, for example, in the ECPS, Empowering Communities for Public Safety Act, which provided our new individuals that will be running for office in this coming February 28th. I worked on that for 7 years in the administration, under 2 administrations. So I'm very proud of my work as it relates to police, but we have to do a lot more.
Do you support the Safety Act as amended and now as a subject of a Supreme Court review?
I've been, watching it with great interest. I believe the core function of the Safety Act is what I believe in. I think the details need to, have, always be further worked out. I think that you can always make something better, but you can't worry about it always being perfect. You can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. So I believe that.
What is the core function?
The core function is that someone should not be penalized for being held in jail pending trial just solely because they don't have any money. Mm-hmm. I believe that. That part I do agree with. And I think that working in that vein, we should be staying toward that. But I do believe that people that are violent, people that are habitual offenders, people that have not showed up for trial, which is the core function of the bill, is to make sure that people attend their court hearings and their trial dates. We want to make sure that's the core function of why the Safety Act is there. But violent offenders should stay in prison. Those that are dangerous to others or dangerous to society in general should be in prison pending trial. And I think judges are the arbiters that should be making that decision.
He is Roderick Sawyer, Alderman Roderick Sawyer, 6th Ward. More information on his candidacy for mayor can be found at Sawyer4Chicago.com, Sawyer4Chicago.com. Alderman Roderick Sawyer, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-333-1750. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term